I used to work the late-night shift at a lonely little diner on the edge of a highway in Washington State. It was a quiet place, not many people came by that late, especially not at 2 a.m., which was closing time. Still, every now and then, a weary traveler or a local would stop by for a quick meal, but that night, things felt different. I had this uneasy feeling in my gut, one I couldn't quite shake. It was almost 2 a.m., and the only two people left in the building were me and the chef. Just as we were about to wrap things up, a man walked in. He was heavy-set, wearing awkwardly high jeans, a tucked-in gray shirt, and a brown jacket. His mustache looked stiff and unnatural, almost like it had been glued on. He smiled at me, but something about it didn't reach his eyes. "Just a black coffee and some French toast," he said, after a brief glance at the menu. He introduced himself as Nolan, flashing that same unsettling smile. I could feel him watching me as I turned to place his order. It's not unusual for people to make small talk, but the way he pressed for details about where I was from felt invasive. I kept my answers vague. He seemed harmless at first, just another lonely guy looking for company, but that changed when he leaned in a bit too close and started asking more personal questions, his smile never fading. His voice was low and too friendly for comfort. I tried to keep the conversation light, ready to retreat behind the counter if necessary. Finally, he finished his food, paid his bill, and left. I breathed a sigh of relief. I did my final cleanup, said goodnight to the chef, and stepped outside into the cold, empty parking lot. That's when I noticed it, a third car parked in the shadows near the highway. It hadn't been there earlier. A silver, older model vehicle, maybe a 2005 Toyota or Audi, I couldn't be sure. The windows were pitch black, and I couldn't tell if someone was inside. I brushed off the thought and got into my car, starting the 20-minute drive home. But just as I settled into a steady speed on the highway, a warning dinged from my dashboard, low tire pressure. I glanced at the screen. The rear passenger side tire's pressure was dropping fast. My heart began to race. I pulled over, my hands trembling as I stepped out to inspect the tire. Flat as could be, panic welled up inside me. I didn't know how to change a tire. I had never even used my roadside assistance before. I felt utterly helpless, stranded on this desolate stretch of road. Suddenly, headlights appeared in the darkness, slowing down as they approached me. I hurried back into my car, locking the doors. A tap on my window made me jump, my breath catching in my throat. It was him, Nolan. "Kathy, is that you?" He called out through the glass, smiling as if we were old friends. I don't know how he knew my name. I don't know how he found me, but I knew one thing. He did this. He slashed my tire. "Need some help?" he asked, feigning concern. His hands were gloved now, and I knew deep down that I was in real danger. My fingers fumbled for my phone. I dialed 911, holding it low on my lap, praying he couldn't see it. I cracked the window just an inch, enough to talk without giving him any room to reach inside. "I'm fine, thanks. My boyfriend's on his way," I lied, trying to keep my voice steady. His smile faltered. He stepped back, eyes narrowing as if he was weighing his options. Then he turned away, and I thought just for a second that he might leave, but then... shattering glass. I screamed as shards flew across my lap. Nolan's arm shot through the broken window, reaching inside. I could only watch in terror as he snatched my phone and hurled it into the darkness. He didn't say a word. He just stared at me for a long, horrible moment, then turned and sprinted back to his car, speeding off into the night. I was alone, no phone, no way to call for help. I couldn't even see where my phone landed. I stayed locked in my car, trembling until I heard the blessed sound of sirens. Red and blue lights bathed the highway, and I sobbed in relief as the police pulled up behind me. They were kind, compassionate. They found my phone, but it was completely destroyed. I gave them a description of Nolan and his car, and one officer even followed me home to make sure I was safe, but they never found him. As far as I know, he just vanished into the night. I quit that job the next day. I couldn't shake the feeling that he'd come back for me if I stayed. That he was still out there somewhere, lurking in the shadows, waiting.